To be fair, BMW hasn't sued Apple for the M4 chip, or the M3, or the M2.
Yeah.
Maybe they're spending so much money on advertising that they forget that they have to raise their price lock guarantee. They have to raise prices. The actual context for that song was because one of the band members had a crush on one of the other one's grandmas.
Bruh.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the iTunes Fanboy Podcast. As always, I'm Teddy Magger from the iTunes Fanboy.
I am Tabby Cat TC Tech.
And Alpha DeWolf from the Random Alpha is not here with us because he was initially supposed to be here. In fact, Alpha and I started recording without Tabby. However, the problem was that Tabby got home and then Alpha's internet decided to crap out, and we tried for like 10 minutes to keep us all connected, but it's just not going to work tonight. So as a result, we celebrated our 3-year anniversary back when we started off when it was just me and Tabby. So I guess that's how we're going to do this episode on a rare occasion.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's get on to our first topic, which Alpha and I started getting into, but failed to complete, which is that Pebble has just released their new watches, which are the Core 2 Duo and the Core Time 2.
Yeah. Those, I've always kind of liked Pebble's design. Never had one. I've kind of always just been an Apple user, so I feel like the Apple Watch just makes the most sense for me to use.
Yeah, it really does.
But if I was an Android user, that would definitely be a good option. But I feel like Pebble's market is a little bit divided now because Google users will probably buy a Pixel Watch, Samsung users are likely to buy a Galaxy Watch, Apple users are almost all the time going to buy an Apple Watch.
Yeah, and another thing to consider as well is that, like, just something about the name that Alpha and I started discussing.
The Core 2 Duo, like the old Intel processors?
Yeah, that's in my... Hang on, let me grab it. That's in... Well, actually, I could grab any of the... grab a lot of these. That's in this. This. And this.
Yeah.
However, I guess, but when I just grabbed out like 3 old MacBooks from I grabbed my 2010 MacBook Pro, my 2009 white MacBook, and my 2006 black MacBook, late 06 black MacBook, and my mid 2009 white MacBook. So I showed so that was basically what I showed for those listening on the audio. But we also brought up how, to be fair, BMW hasn't sued Apple for the M4 chip, or the M3, or the M2.
Yeah.
And Samsung also hasn't sued Apple for calling their processors and Apple Watches the S8, the S9, so on and so forth.
I think Intel is probably glad about this because, in reality, would Intel want anybody knowing about the Core 2 Duo? It was a good processor, but it's 20 years old. I don't think that Intel really wants anybody to be researching their old processors from 20 years ago.
I mean, that's a valid point. The only reason why I can see it from a business standpoint is because it's their patent that they want to go after. But to be fair, Intel's in such hot water right now that they probably don't have the means to do that.
Yeah.
To sue the new Pebble.
Yeah. Well,
but
what other topics do we have besides the Pebble Watch?
So, moving back, so this is still about smartwatches, but smartwatch sales dropped by 7% in 2024 compared to 2023 overall, and Apple Watch sales declined by 19% last year.
It's probably because you can keep an Apple Watch for so long.
Yeah, like I bought a Series 7 when it wasn't the latest. And
nice.
This fall I'll probably buy an Ultra 2 or 3, depending on whichever one's the latest.
Here's the thing about Apple Watches. You can keep an Apple Watch forever. They can't go obsolete because Their purpose is to tell time and do notifications, right? Maybe some people use
Yeah.
apps. If the first Apple Watch ever made, if the battery was not complete garbage on it, right? You could still use it. And theoretically, you could do 70%, 30% of the things that a new Apple Watch can do. I forgot how much
Yeah.
medical stuff Apple Watches have, but the reality of it is Apple Watches are one of the only products that I think you can keep as long as you want and you won't have any issues if you take care of it. That's why I'm so careful with the battery health on my Apple Watch, which is now at 91%, unfortunately.
Oh, on my Apple Watch Series 7, it is 86% the last I checked.
Man, you've kept your Series 7 for almost. Actually,
Two,
no, I forgot
two
you got it.
years now.
Yeah, mine was at 80% after 2 years. Maybe it was 81, something like that.
Yeah. And Alpha's, I think, is Series 7, I think, is a little bit higher, although one thing that Alpha and I discussed about his Apple Watch is that number one, like because I'm outside in the hot weather a lot of times in the summer, like I lift as a result, like the more heat probably degrades it. But also, I am pretty hard on my Apple Watch's battery because I'm oftentimes not a good place to charge my Apple Watch, and the
Yeah.
battery life runs out so quickly that I'm having to fast charge up to like 70, or else I'm taking a shower as it charges and it charges all the way to 100. Like it's just
I charge mine
it,
overnight just because it's not because it needs charged every night, but it's actually because I can't sleep with the watch on.
I can't sleep with my Apple Watch on either, but I don't like to leave stuff charging overnight since
Oh,
I've gone to that a million times. Basically, I just don't like leaving
yeah.
stuff that isn't meant to be plugged in.
The thing with I don't, it leaves marks on my like wrist because I have the Milanese loop and it's just uncomfortable and I might as well charge it.
Well, yeah, there's no way I could possibly sleep with my Apple Watch on because I toss and turn so much as I'm trying to fall asleep.
Yeah, I
And also, and also, oh, Alpha's asking us to
oh, I
join a
think he
FaceTime
accidentally called
call.
us. I don't think he meant to because he hung up right after. But he would have joined the
Yeah.
this call. But anyways, I feel like um the only time when I actually have worn my watch to sleep is when I wanted to do sleep tracking, which I do occasionally,
Yeah.
just to see, make sure everything's fine there. But um, yeah, it's just uncomfortable. But back to the topic, I feel like the sales are decreasing because people don't need new watches every year. People don't need watches every 2 years. People don't need watches every 5 years. It's cool to get the new watch. I'm not gonna lie. I upgraded from the series I upgraded from the 2015 to the Series 2 to the Series 4 to the SE1 to the 7 to now the 9. And I usually upgrade every 2 years. I'm going to keep the 9 until it doesn't work anymore, I think, because it's such a nice watch. Love the design of it. Love how it feels. It does what I need to do. I don't think I have a single app installed on it because I don't care. It's a great watch.
Yeah.
It's great.
I have apps installed on my Apple Watch, but I hardly ever use them because literally for the most part, everything I use on my Apple Watch, I have on my May on my watch face, which is I check the date, I check the weather, I check my texts, and I'll sometimes respond to them. Sometimes I'll respond to calls. I use it as a
Yeah.
calculator quite frequently, actually, and for workouts. Like even in math class, I use this as my calculator, oftentimes just because it's so convenient.
Yeah.
This doesn't do square roots or anything fancy like that, but to be honest, it really doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Luckily, iPads have calculators now, so I mean,
Finally.
even though my math class offers Texas Instruments calculators, I know this is off topic, but to be honest, I don't even need my Texas Instrument calculator for much anymore.
Yeah.
Unlike last year in my math class when I needed my Texas Instruments calculator for everything because iPads didn't have calculators yet.
Right. But I'd say let's go on to the next topic because it's a pretty
Yeah.
interesting one.
All right. So this next topic is actually a lot more interesting, which is that the Samsung Galaxy Store is offering an 80% cut for game developers.
No, what does the 80% cut for game developers mean in specific?
It means that so for game developers, like for all games on this Galaxy Store, all purchases made in games, Samsung gets a 20% cut out of that. Where unlike the App Store, the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, where Apple and Google will take 30% cuts respectively.
Now, I'd say 20% still a lot. That's what I'm going to say first. And secondly, I am willing to put money on the idea that the App Store and the Play Store both have much better support than the Galaxy Store. What happens if a developer has an issue on the Galaxy Store? Who are they going to contact? On the App Store, I'm sure Apple has that covered. On the Galaxy Store, I can't see a scenario where Samsung seriously takes anyone serious with that.
Yeah, and furthermore, I mean, small developers. I mean, giving Apple credit where it's due. If your company's revenue is under $1 million, Apple only takes a 15% cut.
Yeah. And honestly, anybody under a million probably would. They're probably the only people who would use the Galaxy Store. Honestly, I can't see enough people using the Galaxy Store. I mean, yeah, we have some major like app titles, but in reality, are we going to see most Play Store apps come to the Galaxy Store? No. There's no need
No.
for the Galaxy Store. It's stupid. Everything the Galaxy Store does, realistically, the Play Store should be able to do. At the end
Yeah,
of
the
the
Play
day,
Store can do everything the Galaxy Store can, and I think the third concept of third-party app stores is stupid because you might as well just sideload everything
it is
at that
stupid.
point.
And honestly, at the end of the day, aren't they just APKs that we install on the phone?
Exactly.
So give Google, why not just give it to Google? But that's kind of my take on
Especially
it.
because the Google Play Store can go. I mean, the problem with Android compared to iOS is that Android is many platforms. Samsung is just one tiny part of that. So therefore, why should so therefore would it make sense for developers to develop for the Play Store and to have to develop for the Galaxy Store?
Right. It reminds me of
No.
it reminds me when developers would have games for the Xbox that you can't play on the PlayStation and games on the PlayStation that you can't play with Xbox users, like crossplay. So like let's say you have a PS3, your friend has a 360, and you want to play a game on multiplayer. You would both need a specific console, right? It's like yeah, Samsung makes up a majority of the market in the US for Android sales, but not everyone's going to have a Samsung. We have Google Pixel, we have Nothing phones, CMF. Who else do we? I mean, we have Alcatel, TCL, Motorola. We have all these different brands.
And most of the time, I don't even see Samsung. Alpha and I don't even see that many Samsung phones out in the wild anymore. Like most of the time, when I see Android phones, which is not even that common anymore, they're typically like cheap. No, they're cheap Chinese ones like TCL,
Yeah, but
Motorola, and all of them. But
yeah. Well, what's next?
T-Mobile is raising prices for more customers.
Well, that sucks because I have T-Mobile. Guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I knew you would be interested in that topic because you use T-Mobile, but yeah, I guess that's. I mean, I know Verizon and AT. I believe Verizon and AT&T generally charge higher prices than T-Mobile
I think
beforehand
so.
anyway. So
Yeah, it's not like anything much is gonna happen.
But didn't T-Mobile always advertise like price lock guarantees?
Maybe.
Maybe they're spending so much money on advertising that they forget that they have to raise their price lock guarantee. They have to raise prices.
Not to mention that they also bought out Mint Mobile, which people are probably going to end up using over T-Mobile because it's just cheaper.
Yes, like T-Mobile. Alpha and I have gone to this many times how T-Mobile is literally just a monopoly at this point.
I like their service, and I think that they're a pretty good brand, so I don't know.
Yeah. T-Mobile is definitely a lot more worth suing over antitrust than Apple.
Yeah.
But shall we move on to our next topic?
Yeah.
So, Microsoft found the cure for our artificial intelligence disease, which, were you here for, were you, so before, oh yeah, you showed up late for last week's episode, right?
Yeah.
So, do you know what or artificial intelligence disease is?
I could imagine.
So, Microsoft found the cure for it by accidentally deleting Copilot from Windows.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
Copilot.
that's
The biggest feature of the most important feature of Windows for the past year just accidentally got deleted.
yeah. I mean, should never come back the way that I've seen it work. Stupid feature.
I've never even tried Copilot because, to be honest, because the only time I've ever used Windows 11 recently is the only time I've ever used Windows 11 period, I should say, is on my school computers.
Yeah.
And of course, because those machines are from 2012, a lot of them. As a result, I can't even try Copilot plus PC on them. So
Yeah. Well, Copilot's a waste of time, in my opinion.
and I'm glad that Microsoft accidentally deleted it. But shall we move on to our next topic?
Yeah.
So, this is one that Alpha really should have been here for, but basically in his latest drive video, there's this electric car reviewer named Mark Rober, and the controversy.
Isn't Mark Rober a scientist or something? Or an engineer? Or am I thinking about a different Mark Rober?
You might be thinking about a different one. But basically what he did is he tested. I mean, technically testing FSD is technically science, so technically that is science. But getting back on topic, what he did was he tested Tesla Autopilot and he painted a fake wall that looked like a road, and he tested Autopilot, and the car drove right through the wall.
Huh. Okay.
And the controversy behind it.
Why didn't GPS kick in? I thought Autopilot had some GPS capabilities.
It does, but basically it was a very, very thin wall, and it's all cameras only, so it's not the best at identifying it. But a lot of people started raging at him in the comment sections of that video and whatnot because he didn't use FSD, even though FSD would have probably done the exact same thing.
I don't know.
Because it was such a thinly painted wall.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I mean, again, this would really be best with Alpha explaining because I haven't watched that video yet because I haven't had that much time to watch YouTube lately.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's interesting.
yeah. Indeed.
But yeah. So are we out of normal topics?
Yeah, we're done with our crucial topics now, so now we're moving on to rumors.
Wait, I have one thing.
Oh, what is it?
So this morning I woke up and I wanted to go places, so I got my car, right? ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to get to Evan's house because we were gonna take his Pontiac Solstice out for an oil change, right? So
Okay.
the wireless CarPlay no longer functions in my car. The Bluetooth module seems to be broken in my car. So I factory reset the entire car, and it threw up an error that basically said, "Screw you, we can't reset the device connections." And I'm like, really? I was so annoyed because this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't happen, period. Shouldn't happen on any car. I don't care if it's a base model Camry or a Rolls Royce. I don't care if whatever it is. This shouldn't happen. And this annoyed me
No.
so much that if I could get out of the lease, I probably would have went to Audi, and I probably would have got out of the thing and went to a different car brand just based on that, because I've had this issue many times with this car, and I'm getting so tired of dealing with it. I It's not even funny. I've never had this issue on any other vehicle besides the Audi and the ID4, and the ID4 is just a problem on wheels. So,
Yeah, yeah. Some cars just are really bad at connecting to Bluetooth. Like my dad's car's like my dad's M6 is 2016 BMW M6. That's horrible at connecting to Bluetooth and
does that thing have
both
CarPlay?
wired in. No, it does not.
Oh. Yeah,
And
I couldn't even connect the phone normally for Bluetooth because I can get to where I need to go with minimal directions, but I hate driving in silence. And there's nothing on the radio that my music taste is not radio music really. You know,
no.
I
Yeah,
definitely
I've heard what kind of music you listen to, and it's not. And the radio definitely does. If the radio played that stuff, then the music industry would not be as bad as it is right now.
the type of stuff that I listen to is more or less artists from the 2000s that don't make music anymore, and like alternative rock, some older rock,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's like I'm not finding that on the
That's
radio.
one. That's part of my. That's basically my favorite. I've been trying to get into more of that stuff lately, as I really like listening to. I know this is off topic, but I really like the Killers. Somebody
Oh,
told
they're good.
me.
That whole album is very good. The
Yeah, I'd
Hot
like to
Fuss
see.
album.
And they have some more recent albums too that I haven't listened to because oh yeah, I guess I could mention this, but because of Apple Music, I ran out. So I used 75% of my cellular data.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
I
you had limited
so
data.
Yeah, I do. So as a result, I basically can't listen to new music in the car anymore.
Right. Yeah, but I can
So
send you
basically, I
some
have no.
I can send you some music that I think you'd like if you're into stuff like the Killers.
Have you listened to We the Kings?
I do. They're good.
Yeah. All time low. Dear Maria,
Oh,
count me in.
I actually saw that band in concert once. They were amazing.
They have a more recent album too that I haven't listened to.
All of their albums are amazing. That band is just great.
What else? The Fountains of Wayne. They don't make music anymore, but Fountains of Wayne, Stacy's
Oh
mom.
yeah, that's good. That's a classic.
It's not. It's such a bad. Do you know the real context for that song?
I think I could imagine.
No, like, dude, like the real context is a lot weirder.
Did he actually was the song based on a true story?
Kind of. So basically, so for those of you who don't know, aren't familiar with Stacy's mom, it's basically about a guy who develops a crush on his girlfriend's mom. However, the actual context for that song was because one of the band members had a crush on the one of the other one's grandmas,
Bruh.
and they toned it down, and then so they decided to make a song about, it, but heavily tone it down.
Yeah.
To be
Well,
honest, I kind of wish they made a song about the real context, since that would have been even funnier.
yeah.
But they can't make albums now, or else I believe they would have, because their singer I believe is gone.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, he died. Yeah, the lead singer I believe died in 2020.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, I used to actually think that Stacy's mom was like from the 1980s because
It does have that older sound. What's it from?
it
Early
kind of
2000s,
does,
late
but
90s?
also because I just thought that the guy had to be older
Mm-hmm.
because I was around the turn of the pandemic, and so I figured, oh, he must be an older guy.
Yeah.
But this is not a music podcast, so shall we go ahead and move on to our next topic?
Yeah.
So, the iPhone 17 Air, its dynamic island is going to be the same size as on the iPhone 16. It'll have a high density battery.
Oh. Huh. That's gonna be an
That'll
interesting
be cool, I
phone.
guess.
We'll see.
I mean, I considered maybe possibly getting that phone because even though I know it's going to do so badly, it's such a weird, wacky phone.
I could see myself possibly owning it. It depends on the actual size.
It's going to be 6.9 inches, so that's again.
Oh yeah, no, I
Or no,
can't do
not
that.
6.9, 6.6 inches, I think.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Like, that's a little bulky for my taste, but at the same
It's
time,
thinner.
all iPhones are way too. But at the same time, it is then, and also it's such a weird phone. It'd be interesting to actually like carry one around for 3 years, or
Yeah.
maybe 2 years, because that way I get more satellite data connectivity since my cell reception is horrible in my area.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that phone ends up. But
Yeah.
yeah, what other rumors do we have?
Oh yeah. So iOS 19. So on iOS 19, its RCS will apparently is rumored to get end-to-end encryption for the first time.
Oh, that's cool. It's a nice feature to have.
Yeah, that really is. I didn't know that was not there at first, but I mean, it's glad that it'll eventually come.
Right. Yeah, but AirPods are rumored to get live translation.
Oh yeah, so I see you
That's
have the
gonna be
topics
cool.
too. So
I do.
yes, AirPods are rumored to get live translation, which means that if you're so let's say I'm talking to let's say I'm trying to talk to Tabby in English, but he's trying to talk to me in Spanish, and we don't know each other's languages. AirPods will get live translation, so that way we can. Well, it's the calls. Well, if we were in person, we're talking to each other in person, like we would be able to have a conversation with basically a live translator, kind of like Apple Translate.
Yeah.
That would actually be kind of cool, since one time I actually had to use Apple Translate on my iPad 9th generation because it was in my entry level coding class last school year, and me and a couple of my other classmates or kids in that class were working on a project with this guy who did not speak English.
Oh.
So we had to use Apple Translate so we could communicate, since none of the other guys knew Spanish. None of us knew Spanish except for that guy who didn't speak English.
Yeah. That would be a nice use for it. It just depends on how well it works, what languages are supported, how quick it is, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really depends on all that stuff because if it like I mean I'm sure it will support like the basic stuff like Spanish and French because those are widely and English because they're worldwide languages, and I'm sure well they make AirPods in Vietnam, so I assume they'd support Vietnamese at launch.
Maybe.
And I assume they do Chinese and Japanese and Korean at launch.
I'd assume Spanish and all those types of languages, like the kind of common ones in the US, because Apple is based in California, so.
Yeah, I mean, California. Now, granted, Apple's in Northern California, but especially in Southern California, like you have a lot of Hispanic people there because they're close to the border of Mexico,
Yeah.
and you also have a lot of Asian immigrants that come over to that come over to that come over to California, and California also gets the other kind of the other kind of immigrants.
Yeah, I don't think that we should really be speaking about that though.
No, we should. No, I think everybody understands what we mean by that, but
Yeah, that's yeah.
all right. Getting back away from controversial topics, shall I move on to Sonos?
Yeah, what's going on with them?
So remember the rumors to create a streaming box?
Yeah.
They scrapped that.
Huh.
I mean, it makes sense as it's not really their target market since streaming is really not their focus.
Yeah. Oh well, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like I was really looking forward to that anyway, but do you have anything more to say about this, or shall I move on to our final rumor?
What's the final rumor?
So Xbox is rumored to make a gaming handheld that will launch in 2027, and it'll be possibly made by Asus instead of Microsoft themselves. But here's the kicker. It's rumored to only support cloud gaming, which, I mean, should we even call that a rumor given Microsoft's latest directions?
All right, so I'm gonna basically sum this up. It's basically gonna be a ROG Ally that's got no good hardware in it. It's gonna be a ROG Ally with a Kindle Fire's motherboard, and it's gonna support cloud gaming, which we know Microsoft servers are not ready for thousands of people to be online at once cloud gaming. Okay, and what's the it's stupid. Okay, I hate
Yeah.
cloud gaming because I've I've done local network gaming where with the PlayStation Portal. That's not cloud based. You're connecting directly to your own server, right? So, Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet going into the PS5, Wi-Fi, well, PlayStation Portal only support Wi-Fi 5, so technically I was doing overhead with Wi-Fi 6E, right? And there's still a big delay. Imagine how bad that would be if you're connecting not only to your own home network, but then Microsoft's network. There's going to be so much delay. And we've tried this before. I'm pretty sure Microsoft has this feature already available on your own device. It's not going to
Yeah.
work unless Microsoft makes some serious upgrades to their servers. And also, Microsoft might not be the bottleneck here. What about the ISPs?
Yes, exactly. For Microsoft seems to again, Microsoft's based in Seattle, where the internet infrastructure is probably amazing. But once you get, but I'll bet you, like if you live even in Eastern Washington State, just as an example, the internet service there might not be so good.
Yeah,
And I mean, what if you live in the UP and want a game?
yeah. I really hope cloud gaming is not the future because let's say a bunch of the dudes, who live right next to the Microsoft headquarters do somehow get a good connection, right? Here's the issue there. What about everybody else in the world who's not going to get a good connection? What about people who are connecting to Microsoft servers from other countries? Sure, Microsoft might be able to put servers in different regions of the world, right? They can put their servers wherever, but it still doesn't change the fact that you're going to have, if you're playing an online game, you're going to have delay from the game servers to Microsoft servers to your machine. Then you're going to have Microsoft servers to your machine. And what if Microsoft servers go down? Then what are you going to do?
Yeah,
Can't.
we know they're going to go down. And what if these Xbox gaming handhelds crash? Because we all know of Microsoft's history that these things are going to crash.
Yeah. Well, that's Xbox for you.
That's also all of our planned podcast topics.
Yeah.
Well, I know it seems a little bit early, but I know we were only 34 minutes in, but do we have anything more to talk about?
Um, I don't think so really. So
Shall I just go ahead and
I guess this is gonna be a pretty short episode, but
I think that's
3 years.
okay.
I mean, 3 years ago we were doing 30-minute episodes, right? So
Yeah, it's generally once Alpha gets on because Alpha Well, I have a tendency to ramble too, but Alpha especially has a tendency to ramble on.
Every time
so
we
as a
get three
result-
people on.
Yeah, it's just yeah, because we all have to take turns. Like it just takes a lot longer. But all right, well, I guess shall we just go ahead and begin the outro.
Um, yeah, but one last thing that I want to say, this kind of reminds me of how cars have been just getting longer and bigger every year for the last like 20 years. Our show has been getting longer and longer every episode for the last 3 years. So this is kind of a nice return to form.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, our episodes have been getting shorter gradually over these past few episodes, but yeah. So to make sure not to go on for too long, as always, thank you all for tuning into another episode of the iTunes Fan Podcast. And I am Teddy Mack from the iTunes Fanboy.
I am Tabby Cat from TC Tech.
And as always, we're reminding you not to embrace your artificial intelligence. And as always, peace out and goodbye, Tabby.
All right, I will send this to you. See ya.
All right, see ya.